There is a part of burnout recovery that we don't talk about enough. It's what happens after you finally choose to slow down. You take the weekend off, you start canceling commitments. Maybe you take a vacation, step away from the business for a while, end an unhealthy relationship, leave a draining job, or give yourself permission to stop being everything to everybody. And eventually you start feeling just a little bit more peaceful, right? But then another question starts to creep in. What next? You're not in crisis anymore, but you don't necessarily feel excited either. You're not running on adrenaline, but you're also not sure what motivates you. The things you used to stress as important you don't feel that as much of that pressure anymore. The goals you used as a driving force don't hit the same. And although you know you needed the rest, a part of you is still wondering or asking yourself, have I lost my ambition? Am I becoming complacent? What if I never get my drive back? And even more, what if healing made me too comfortable? If that is where you are, I want you to hear me clearly. You may not have lost your drive. You may have simply outgrown the version of yourself that needed pressure in order to move. And that is what we're talking about today. When rest doesn't fix burnout, and what high achieving women actually need instead. Welcome back to the Self-Care CEO podcast with Courtney. Now, if you are a strong, responsible, high achieving woman who has spent years caring more than most, then people start to realize that this conversation is especially for you. Let's start with something important. Now, rest is necessary, but rest is not your entire recovery process. Let me say that again. Rest is necessary, but it's not your entire recovery process. Sometimes burnout advice makes it seem like all you need to do is take a vacation, take a nap, get a massage, take a day off, or have a better morning and night routine. Now, those things are still important and can still support your burnout recovery process because your body needs those opportunities to slow down. And also, your body needs to see, as well as your nervous system, you giving it permission to slow down without any guilt or pressure. I don't think people realize how vital our nervous system needs to feel safety. Of course, we need sleep, space, quiet, healthy nourishment, and time when nobody needs anything from us. But rest alone can't answer every question burnout leaves behind. Rest can help your body recover from exhaustion, but it can't automatically tell you who you are now or who you are becoming. It also can't decide what you still want. It can't rebuild a life that was organized around overfunctioning, and it can't replace the relationships, routines, responsibilities, or goals you may have needed to release. It also can't create meaning for you. That is why when some women finally get the chance to rest, it still feels a bit hollow. They did what everybody told them to do. They slowed down. They took a trip. They created boundaries. They stopped pushing themselves. But still, they don't quite feel like themselves. The problem is not that they failed at resting. The problem is that they expected rest to accomplish something that requires a deeper process. Rest helps you stop, but recovery helps you rebuild. And renewal helps you want again. So think of the 3 R's: rest, recovery, and renewal. Those are all related, but they are not the same thing. So let's talk about why your drive can disappear after healing. For many high achieving women, ambition was never fueled entirely by desire. Some of it was fueled by survival. Maybe you learned early that being successful made you valuable. Maybe achievement helped you receive praise, attention, safety, or even acceptance. And maybe being the dependable one, protected you from criticism. Maybe productivity kept you from sitting with grief, loneliness, fear, shame, or disappointment. Maybe you became excellent at anticipating everyone else's needs because it helped you feel seen and secure. Or maybe slowing down simply just wasn't an option for you. There were bills to pay, children to raise, clients to serve, parents to care for, a business to build, or a family depending on you. So you learn how to perform better under pressure. You learn how to keep going when you are tired, how to use urgency as fuel, how to turn anxiety into productivity. You even learn how to make things happen, even when making things happen was costing you. But from the outside, you made it look so easy, so much so like discipline. Although some of it, I would say, would be considered discipline. But some of it may also have been hypervigilance, fear, perfectionism, people pleasing, or the belief that you were only as valuable as what you produce. When healing begins to address those patterns, your old fuel starts disappearing. Fear may not motivate you the way it used to. Proving people wrong no longer feels as satisfying. External validation may not hold the same weight as it did before. And you may no longer want to sacrifice your health to reach a goal. You may stop volunteering to rescue everybody. You may decide that success is not worth having if you have to abandon yourself to maintain it. And that shift can feel like losing your drive. But what you may be actually losing is your dependence on survival-driven motivation. And there's often space between releasing the old motivation and discovering the new motivation. And that space can feel a bit uncomfortable. You know who you were when everything was urgent. You knew what to do when you were proving, performing, fixing, chasing, and just surviving. The who you are when your life is no longer an emergency becomes a question mark. Who are you when your next decision doesn't have to impress anyone? And those aren't productivity questions. Those are identity questions. And you can answer identity questions with another journal or planner. This is also why peace can initially feel like emptiness, because your nervous system has been so accustomed to stress. Peace really doesn't immediately feel peaceful. Sometimes it feels more unsteady than anything. It's definitely unfamiliar, boring, and ultimately it feels unsafe. You may find yourself looking for a problem to solve because solving problems is where historically you felt seen and even useful. You start to create a new deadline just as second nature. Accept another responsibility. Revisit a relationship you already outgrew. Or set an unnecessary, demanding goal. Not because it's right for you, but because pressure feels more familiar than peace. Sometimes we say we miss our ambition when what we really miss is the emotional intensity that used to accompany it. We miss the adrenaline, the urgency, the validation, the identity of being the one who can handle everything. But familiar does not always mean healthy. And calm doesn't mean that you stop caring. Your body may simply be learning that it no longer has to manufacture a crisis in order for you to feel alive. So, what do high achieving women really need to really feel like enough? The first thing you need is permission to grieve your former self, even when a version of you was exhausted. You may have also been incredibly productive. You knew how to execute, you met the deadline, you showed up, you made the money, you took care of everybody, you survived things that people may never understand. Healing definitely will require you to release some of those patterns, but that doesn't mean that you have to hate the old version of yourself to do it. You can appreciate how your former self protected you without allowing that version to run your entire future. You can say things like, "Thank you for getting me here, but I don't have to keep hurting myself to prove that I'm capable." There can be grief in realizing that the identity that made you successful is also the identity that no longer serves you in this situation or sustain you. Give yourself permission to acknowledge that loss firstly. The second thing you need is space to recover, to rediscover desire. Burnout often disconnects you from the question, what do I want? Because you become so focused on what has to be done and what everybody else needs, what your business requires, what family expects of you, or what would make more sense, that your personal desires start to become irrelevant and they even start to fade in the background. You stop asking yourself what it is that you want because you don't believe there is room for the answer. Then, when you finally create room, you may not know how to access your desires anymore. But that doesn't mean they're gone. It means the connection has become weak just from a lack of use. So we have to start small. You don't have to immediately identify your next major assignment or launch a new business, discover your life purpose, or even create a 5-year plan. We have to start asking simpler questions. What am I curious about? What gives me energy without demanding that I perform? What do I enjoy even if nobody sees it? What have I wanted to explore but kept dismissing it because it wasn't productive? What feels meaningful to me now? Not 5 years ago, not before the burnout, but right now in this moment. And desire will eventually return, but quietly and in small doses. And I think one thing we have to remember is that desire, healing, and restoration is not dramatic. And it's not like a voila moment. It begins as curiosity. So pay attention to what makes you lean in to yourself. The third thing you need is a new definition of what ambition looks like to you and for you. Many women think there are only two options. Either I'm ambitious or exhausted. I'm rested or complacent. But those are really false narratives and false choices. You can be ambitious without being self abandoning. You can build without constantly operating in urgency. You can want more without believing that your current life is inadequate. You can pursue purpose while respecting your capacity. Healthy ambition is not the absence of effort. It is effort that remains connected to your values, your body, your relationship, and your actual new season of life. Your new ambition moves a little bit more slowly. It's quieter. It may be less interested in impressing people. It prioritizes sustainability over speed. It may require you to even disappoint people who benefited from you over functioning. And it may not look as dramatic online. That really is invalid, and it doesn't make it less powerful. The fourth thing you need is the ability to distinguish between discomfort and danger. Anytime you begin something new, there will be discomfort. Healing doesn't mean you will never stretch, work hard, take a risk, or feel afraid. The goal isn't to create a life in which you are never uncomfortable. The goal is to stop interpreting every form of discomfort as proof that you are making the wrong choice, or using discomfort as an excuse to return to what you knew before, which was more familiar to you and really familiar dysfunction. There is a difference between a goal stretching your capacity and a goal consistently violating your capacity. There is a difference between temporary nervousness and ongoing depletion. There's a difference between needing courage and needing recovery. Before you say yes to something else, ask, is this challenging me or is it consuming me? Do I need support or do I need to step back? Is this discomfort connected to growth, or is my body warning me that I'm repeating an old pattern? Your body deserves a voice in this new decision and in this new direction. But fear doesn't have to receive the final vote. The fifth thing you need is permission to build from capacity instead of proving. When you build from proving, the question is, what do I need to accomplish so I can finally feel worthy? But when you build from capacity, the question becomes, what can I responsibly carry while remaining connected to myself? Building from capacity does not mean you never increase your workload. It means growth and capacity have to remain in conversation with each other. If the vision grows, your support system may also need to grow. If the responsibility increases, something else may need to be delegated, delayed, or released from your plate. If the opportunity requires you to consistently abandon your health, peace, values, or relationships, the opportunity may cost more than what it's really worth. This is why I say capacity over hustle. It does not mean purpose doesn't matter. It means you want to have enough of yourself left to experience the life that you're working so hard to build. I want to give you 5 questions you can use as a desire and capacity check. You may want to pause after each one and write down your response. Question number 1. Why did my old ambition help me receive? Did achievement give you approval, safety, attention, identity, financial stability, a sense of control? Be honest. We cannot change a pattern we are not willing to understand. Question number 2. What did my old ambition cost me? Did it cost me sleep, health, relationships, joy, presence, creativity, the ability to recognize when you needed help? You're not asking this to shame yourself. You are identifying the price you are no longer willing to pay. Question number 3. What am I interested in when I remove the need to impress, prove, or perform? Not what sounds good, not what receives the most applause, not what would make people think I'm more successful. What genuinely matters to me? Question number 4. What does my current capacity realistically allow? Not the capacity you had 5 years ago, not the capacity you wish you had, not even the capacity people assume you have because you made hard things look so easy. What do you actually have room to carry in this season? And question number 5. What is one desire I can honor without turning it into another demand? Maybe you want to write. Maybe you don't need to immediately write a book. Maybe you want to write, but you don't need to immediately write a book. Maybe you want to move your body, but you don't need to create an extreme fitness goal. Maybe you miss creating content, but you don't have to commit to posting every day. Maybe you want to explore a new business idea, but you don't have to monetize it this month. Can you allow desire to exist before forcing it to produce? That may be part of your healing too. If you have rested and still feel directionless, I don't want you to panic. You are not necessarily lazy. You're not automatically losing your edge. And healing has not ruined your ambition. You may simply be in the process of learning how to move without fear chasing you. You are learning how you want to pursue purpose without turning purpose into punishment. And you are learning that peace is not the end of your story. Peace is the environment in which you can finally hear yourself clearly enough to decide what comes next. Rest was never supposed to become your permanent destination. It was supposed to give you enough space to recover your ability to choose. The goal is not to stay still forever. The goal is to stop allowing survival to decide every direction you take. You are allowed to want again, dream again, and build again. But this time, you don't need to use anxiety as your project manager. You do not have to use exhaustion as evidence that you are committed. You do not have to destroy your capacity to prove that you have a calling. Your next season does not have to look like your survival season. So let me leave you with this. Maybe you haven't lost your drive. Maybe you are finally becoming unwilling to be driven by the things that once depleted you. Now you get to decide what deserves your energy. If this episode described where you are, tell me in the comments. Are you learning how to want again? Or are you still giving yourself permission to rest? And if you know another high-achieving woman who has been questioning herself during her healing season and process, make sure you share this episode with her too. Please subscribe for more conversations around burnout, boundaries, emotional wellness, and learning to lead with capacity instead of panic. and hustle. So until next time, take care of yourself and remember, you don't have to abandon yourself to accomplish what you have been called to do. See y'all next time.